Mm.
We know the difference and what lighting needs to be doing when we're traveling to a scene and getting attention and moving traffic versus we've arrived on scene and now we need to get folks to move over and not hit officers and have struck by incidents.
Yeah, let's
So,
talk about that. I don't want to
yeah,
interrupt you, but you're going right to where I want to go here, which is really speaking to our mission of making it safer for those who
right.
serve and keeping names off the memorial walls. I think about my early lighting systems, and you're right, it was just the brightest lights, and you only had one setting, and you went to the call, and if it was a crash on the side of the road, you kept your all your lights on in hopes that somebody might see it. But now, what I think most people realize, certainly in law enforcement, and even folks that are passing by maybe in their vehicles, if they see a scene where there's two or three or more vehicles on the side of the road, that it seems that these lighting systems have the technology to sync up with each other, which I think is just absolutely amazing. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the concept behind that and even how it works.
You're listening to Precinct 444, a podcast network from the National Law Enforcement Museum. Today we're bringing you an episode from Lifeline, offering a holistic wellness approach focused on supporting American law enforcement, promoting resilience, safety, and survivability.
Greetings. My name is Troy Anderson, Executive Director of Officer Safety and Wellness for the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, and welcome back to another edition of Lifeline. It brings me great pleasure to introduce an innovative approach to officer safety today with one of our corporate sponsors, Whelen Engineering. Joining us today on Lifeline is Chris Watkins, an innovative technology liaison for Whelen Engineering. Chris has a wealth of experience in automotive industry with a focus on emergency vehicle upfitting, fabricating, and racing vehicles for over 25 years. His expertise spans a variety of automotive-related activities, indicating a deep understanding of vehicle maintenance, electronics, and emergency equipment design. Chris has worked directly with advanced intelligent control systems and emergency lighting theory since 2012. Whelen Engineering Company is known for manufacturing high-quality lighting and siren systems for emergency and warning vehicles. Working with Whelen's advanced intelligent control systems expertise in integrating and optimizing these systems within emergency vehicles and ensuring that they function effectively during crisis and critical situations. Overall, Chris's extensive experience in the automotive industry, coupled with his specialization in emergency vehicle upfitting and knowledge of advanced control systems, positions him as a valuable resource for enhancing the functionality and safety of emergency vehicles. Thank you for joining us here today, Chris. And please give us a little history on Whelen Engineering and discuss their mission to improve first responder safety.
Oh, Troy, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm glad you memorized all of that.
I don't know that I could have. That's a pretty long one, Chris. You kept
So,
busy.
yeah, Whelan's been manufacturing, producing emergency lighting since 1952. We're well known around the world, and the world's leading manufacturer of lighting and newer technology and emergency services
And how long has Whelen been around?
since 1952. So 72 years. My math is correct.
I can't even imagine what the early Whelen lights looked like back in the old days.
They actually our very first light was a rotating beacon, and our original inventor was loved airplanes and decided to take an airplane light and turn it upside down, put it on top of a law enforcement car, and then that's how it began.
And the next thing you know, Car 54, where are you?
That's right, exactly.
That's about it. Funny backstory, Chris, before we get into this is I'm retired from the Connecticut State Police. And of course, that's where Wheelen is. So when I was assigned to Troop K in Colchester, which sort of covered that area of East Haddam that goes down into Chester, and even though Chester is in Troop F area, the guys and gals that were working in that area would very covertly take their state police cars, which back then the emergency lighting consisted of essentially a light rack that was on the roof of the vehicle. And people other than the wigwags and the headlights didn't really have deck lighting. And Whelen Whelen had much more advanced systems that they were offering. It's just that our organization wasn't paying for those yet. Now, obviously, you've seen our fleet, it's very upfitted. But back then, you knew exactly who the troopers were who were assigned down anywhere near Wheeling because their vehicles were amazing. They had lights on turn signals. I mean, there were lights everywhere. They had hidden strobes. None of us had ever seen anything like this. And for the life of me, I could never get my car in to get anything done down there because I hadn't developed those relationships. I wish I had now. But anyway, what makes Wheeling stand out, their products stand out in the field of first responder safety?
So we really pride ourselves on being located and our design, engineering, manufacturing is all located, and even sourcing is all here in the United States. We're very proud of that. We have over 1,500 employees in the Connecticut, New Hampshire area at both our facilities that design our equipment in-house, manufactured in-house, and then our sales team that provides sourcing all over the globe.
Do you have any stories where Whelan's products directly contributed to saving lives or preventing a disaster?
So I myself have never been a law enforcement officer out in the field, but I get to hear a lot of stories. One of them we actually made a great video about, and I kind of talked about it again because it's kind of it's a unique situation. But we have a emergency management director that was on his way home, and on the way home he came across a motorcycle accident, really in the middle of nowhere, and he was able to use his emergency lighting to stop traffic. They had some 18-wheelers. I guess it was a heavy road where a lot of 18-wheelers do motoring there. So he was able to stop them with his emergency lighting. But he was trying to direct in a helicopter, and to save this motorcyclist's life. Was having a hard time giving directions of exactly where he was. So he was actually able to take our Argus spotlight and aim it straight up in the air, and the helo was able to see it from miles and miles away and directed them right to him, and in essence saving the cyclist's life. So
I'm sure there's probably a lot of those stories out there. And if you to talk to the men and women who have used Whelan technologies on their vehicles over the years, I'm certain that they are grateful for the quality of design and quite honestly, the visibility of that lighting. I mean, as
right.
we look at officer traffic fatality data around the country, and we see more and more officers, unfortunately, in a position, whether it's vehicles going too fast or distracted drivers, anything that can provide additional layers of safety for officers. And of course, I'm certain that there are individuals listening to this podcast today that are responsible for researching and purchasing these types of vehicle lighting and siren systems for the vehicle. What do you want to tell those people? Why do we pick Whelan over some of these other organizations? I won't drop their names, but I've heard a few. Why Whelan?
Yeah, so when you talk about the technology and kind of how it works, especially the movement to LED. So 10, 20 years ago, lighting was much different than it is now. We were using halogen lighting and strobe lighting, and it was basically on or off. You could turn your lighting on or you could turn your lighting off, and that's what you got. And the design was, the more lights I have, the safer I'm going to be. And when the introduction to LED, we're able to put more lighting on a vehicle because it's so much more power efficient. But then it was the race to make your LED lighting bright, because when the first LEDs came out, they were not very bright at all. So the race was to make the LED lighting very bright. And as great as Whelan is, all the lighting manufacturers have now able to make their LED lights extremely bright, to the point where almost too bright. And because we're able to put so much lighting on the car, the real design and how we're making officers safer in the field today is making your lighting smart. We know the difference and what lighting needs to be doing when we're traveling to a scene and getting attention and moving traffic, versus we've arrived on scene and now we need to get folks to move over and not hit officers and have struck by incidents.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I don't want to interrupt you, but you're going right to where I want to go here, which is really speaking to our mission of making it safer for those who serve and keeping names off the memorial walls. I think about my early lighting systems, and you're right, it was just the brightest lights, and you only had one setting, and you went to the call, and if it was a crash on the side of the road, you kept all your lights on in hopes that somebody might see it. But now what I think most people realize, certainly in law enforcement, and even folks that are passing by maybe in their vehicles, if they see a scene where there's two or three or more vehicles on the side of the road, that it seems that these lighting systems have the technology to sync up with each other, which I think is just absolutely amazing. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the concept behind that and even how it works.
Yeah, so that you're right, and that's just one of the levels that you can do with this new lighting. So now that we know, and studies have shown us for decades now that that officers are recommended to reduce your lighting when you're on the side of the road, when you're on scene in an incident. We don't want to blind passerbys. They need to be able to see you're working on the scene, and kind of be able to make their way around it. So the first level of that technology was just dimming the lighting. So we know our systems have photocells and light bars in the car. So we know if it's day or night. So if it's during the day, leave the lighting bright. But if it's nighttime and you put the vehicle in park, we're able to see what the car's doing. So we can start to assume what the officer's doing. The vehicle's in park and it's nighttime, let's dim the lighting. So we kind of already go to that function. We can slow down the patterns. So we want that fast, aggressive pattern when we're heading to a call and trying to clear traffic. But when we get there, drivers behind, that are approaching our scenes, they just need to see that there's an incident up front. They don't need that aggressive lighting to let them know it's emergency. Red and blues are going to tell them that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can slow down that lighting so we're not blinding them with 6,000 flashes per second. We can start slowing that down to where you can see what's going on. You can see if they're on the right or left-hand side of the road. And then as more emergency vehicles arrive on scene, you're right, that sync technology, where we can actually, when all of those vehicles arrive on scene, we can sync the pattern so all of the cars are flashing at the same time. So we're just trying to simplify that scene to allow the drivers passing by an easier scene to see and an easier scene to pass by, so we get less struck-bys.
So those vehicles, their lighting system, the technology is actually speaking to each other. It doesn't does it require an officer to interface, or is it just happening on its own?
It actually doesn't. It's all in the programming, and we try to, we call it intelligent control, because really what we want to do is reduce the amount of input the officer has to give. Officer's got a job to do: secure a bad guy, secure the scene, give aid where it needs to be done. That is their job. Their job is not mess with the lighting. So as we can see what the vehicle's doing, so I can see, are there headlights on? Is the door open? Is the vehicle in park? Is there foot on the brake? And because I can see what the officer's doing, we can start in our programming to assume what the lighting needs to do to back that officer up. So as they arrive on scene and they throw the vehicle in park and they're still in slide switch 3, we can leave that lighting on, we can slow it down. And as other vehicles roll up, they don't have to even talk to each other. Whelen does it in a kind of special way to where all of our lighting patterns are based on time.
Mm-hmm.
60 flashes per minute is 1 flash per second. And if all of those cars are on the same clock, they're all going to time and flash at the same time. So the funny way I kind of present that is we're getting the atomic clock with our system. And so as long as you're on planet Earth, it'll sync together.
One of the things that I don't know that Whelen is involved in, but it would be great if you were. I'll give you this scenario, and it's only because it's really emerging from some of the fatality data that we're looking at. One of the things that we've seen around the nation, and we work very closely with NHTSA, one of the things that we've seen quite a bit of now is law enforcement officers' vehicles being stolen by a suspect on the side of the road. Somehow they're able to gain control of the officer's vehicle and take off, almost always resulting in a crash, and sadly, in several cases, fatalities. I remember back in my early days, the vehicles that we got at some point, and I believe this was aftermarket. I don't know that this was part of a Ford Crown Victoria package that we got, but they had this switch under the floorboard called a Tremco switch. Now, a lot of officers didn't realize, they never got any training in it. They just got the car. I think it was many officers that even knew that they had this in their car would find it sort of cumbersome to work that, because you had to physically really put down a lot of foot pressure. And if you were involved in an emergency scenario where you needed to bail out quickly, you weren't going to check and double check and make sure that worked. Right. And I can even tell you a very funny story. When I was a duty sergeant working for the state police, I had a trooper call me from the field, and he was very upset. And he said, "I need a tow truck, Sarge. I don't know what the problem is. My car is running. I can't get it into gear. I've tried everything." And it had just occurred to me. I said, "Did you look for the Tremco switch on the floor?" And he had no idea what that was. And of
Yeah.
course, once he figured out that that was the problem, he was able to get his vehicle underway. But I'm wondering, getting away from something that is so cumbersome, like one of those floorboard switches, I'm wondering if there's a way to incorporate something into the Whelen technology that's in that vehicle, a button of sorts that perhaps an officer could hit that would render that vehicle sort of immobile if a suspect were to get behind the wheel and not be able to operate that car. I don't know if you have that technology, but if you don't, let me throw this out as my elevator pitch. But if you do have it, I'd love to hear about it, or at least if you're looking into it.
So we do have some advanced installers that have figured out how to do that with our systems. So what you can actually do is, and you being from up north, you probably know about the aftermarket piece you can put, or now when you buy a new car, it kind of comes with it, but an auto start feature where you can start your car without the key. So you can utilize some of our newer control systems because we can build in intelligence and kind of some if-then statements that allow you to leave the car running and take your key out, and then you go to your traffic call. And if a suspect were to jump in the car, try to take it, as soon as they put their foot on the brake, it shuts the engine down, and the vehicle's rendered undrivable. Right,
Yeah.
so the officer gets back in and actually puts in the key. So we've got some agencies out there who have been utilizing our systems to do
That's
that.
great stuff, Chris, because I mean, I think honestly, and I've been out of the field for probably 3.5 or 4 years at this point, but I would be willing to venture a guess that a vast majority of law enforcement agencies across the country are unaware that that type of technology exists. And now, as we see those numbers really starting to uptick and these vehicles being stolen, and not to mention the fact that we all know what's inside of these vehicles, and
Right.
officers have long guns. They very often have additional duty weapons. They could have a taser. They could have a beanbag round shotgun. There's a number of things that they could have in there that you really don't want to fall into the wrong hands.
Right.
So I think that's important. I'm really glad you touched on that. What are some of the common challenges that agencies face that Whelen has been able to help solve?
So some of the common challenges departments face on that we like to help solve is visibility in dangerous environments. So we have high intensity lighting for illumination. Our fire and EMS departments know a lot about it, and it's kind of typically used on those types of vehicles where they're coming to a scene and their 100% job typically is to render aid. So being able to show up into a strange environment and be able to make it daylight anytime they want, that's a strong piece that we'd be able to support. And of course, law enforcement, which is typically the first on the scene anyway, before the fire and EMS get there, they need to render aid until the guys in red can get there as well. So we're helping law enforcement solve that as well. So if you look at a lot of our light bars and our equipment that's been kind of installed in the past 10 or 15 years, not only does the light bar and the lighting around the vehicle do a red, blue kind of emergency response, or just blue, whatever your department chooses, but we can now do a white illumination with all of that lighting as well. So our systems are really able to kind of do whatever you want them to do nowadays. So before, you're talking about your previous car where it was just I have an on switch and I can turn it all on or I can turn it all off, and that was kind of your options. We now have lighting that you can order into 3 colors. So each light head or light head on the vehicle or light head on the light bar can be up to 3 colors. So you can make it red, white, and blue, our favorite 3 colors. But we can make it do any flash pattern, any brightness, and any color at any moment in time we want to. So if I need to emergency response with red and blue, I can do that. If I need to add white flash in there to get extra attention at an intersection for clearing stubborn traffic, I can do that. And then when I arrive on scene, if I want to steady burn white so I can actually illuminate the scene, I can do that with the entire car. So the officer having all of that technology at their disposal just allows a typical patrol vehicle or what they maybe had 10 or 15 years ago do a whole lot more than what they could do yesterday.
One of the major focuses that we have here on our Lifeline program is really coming from where the end user would be. And of course, in this case, the end user from our perspective are the men and women out there in law enforcement in the field. And I know that they will not hold back if you ask them their opinion on, how can we make this better, or what do you really like about what we're doing? What's some of the feedback that you and some of the other folks from Whelen get from the men and women out in the field that use your product?
And I hate this sounds like I'm bragging, but our reliability and performance. That is something that when I was an upfitter in a previous life, and I didn't always sell or have my access to Whelen, I kind of dealt with multiple brands, but that was the one that just about every customer walked in the door and they asked for is this is what I want, and we've had this because it always works, and I never have any issues with it. So I want to continue to go down that route. Whelen strives to be the kind of best and provider of first responders their tools, and I think that's what we're proud about.
And this may dovetail neatly into the next question, which is, what advice would you give departments right now? There is somebody out there listening who is overseeing upfitting a fleet. What advice do you give them about why they should go with Whelan's products, and why yours is better? And in the end, why is it safer for not only the men and women that wear the uniform, but the communities that they serve?
Yeah. So, and I will give this advice for Whelen and really anything else you're shopping for. Reach out to your local representatives. So Whelen has hundreds of local representatives in each area that specialize in knowing the latest and best in tech. Right. So Whelan's very innovative. We're coming out with new things all the time. Our cloud platform is kind of our latest and greatest, and I'm going to steer you towards talking about that here in a minute. But if you reach out to your rep and just have them come out and show you what's the latest and greatest, what are other folks using, and what's the newest in technology that I can give my officers to make them safer out on the road. They can come in and show you, and you don't have to buy any of it or all of it, but at least you arm yourself with the knowledge to know what is available and what's there. Because 9 times out of 10, I bet you have a problem, and I bet we can solve it.
So, how does Whelen see the future of first responder safety evolving?
So we've probably got about 3 things that I'll kind of talk about. So increased automation with our new core control system, which is the actual hardware in the vehicle, and our command software, which is how you program all of our equipment today. We're really trying to increase automation. So taking, as we add more technology to an officer, it adds complexity to their job, right? And we want to give them more safety and more tools, but make it easier for them as well. So increasing automation to where the system will work for the officer instead of the officer having to find the button he wants, he and she wants, we can do that. Some of the best examples are, going to a call and getting to that intersection and needing to clear that intersection. You have the authority to go through a red light, but you got to make sure that you don't have the right of way. You got to make sure that you clear that intersection and everybody sees you before you move through that intersection. So allowing the officer to have more eyes on the road. We're doing a lot of automation with the lighting system and the siren controls, where the officer never has to take their hands off the wheel, never has to push a button. As they approach that intersection, we can automate all of that for them. That way they can focus on getting everybody's attention and knowing they have a clean intersection to go through. And collaborating across sectors. So we're partnering with other tech companies and vehicle manufacturers and safety organizations through our cloud platform to be able to kind of bring technology all into one. But again, sourcing that from just us and be able to give you a lot of tools outside will help agencies.
In keeping with that, are there any new technologies or partnerships that Whelen has that you're excited about that you want to talk about?
So sure, our Whelen Cloud platform is our latest and greatest when we talk about technology and what we have today. So we're tying our emergency vehicles into the cloud, and there are other companies out there that are doing some similar things to what we're doing, but we're really engineering this for emergency responders. So it's a telematics type system, but we're able to give fleet manager tools so they can manage their fleet, but we're also integrating a lot of safety for our officers. So as I was kind of mentioning in that intersection clearing, so we're able to utilize geofences. So now that I know where vehicles are, we're tied into the cloud, see where they're going. We can add that automation in. So as they approach an intersection that's geofenced, that's how we're going to automate that lighting to function for them. If they're responding code to that intersection, they're not hunting for an air horn button. They're not hunting for a button to give them more lighting. As they're approaching and they're under slide 3, we can automatically assume they're going through an intersection, change that lighting, and do everything for them. We can change flash patterns based on, are they on an interstate or are they on a small side road? And they may want different lighting kind of program, but we can really automate and change how technology works. We're partnering with outside companies for like traffic preemption. So it's great to clear that red light intersection. How about we just make it green for them when they get there? So if anybody's familiar with traffic preemption, that's where emergency vehicles can request the green light as they approach an intersection and basically get a green light. It's not necessarily for them to have a green light, but it's really to clear that traffic ahead of them through a green light, and then they have a clear intersection to pass through. But it's safer for emergency officer to travel through green than it is to travel through red. So we partner with the top 5 preemption companies in the world. So our single system can tie into really any preemptive company that your city chooses to partner with. And we also partner with Haas.
Okay. No, I was just going to ask, because I mean, I think that technology is amazing. An ability to alert folks that there is, let's say, a crash scene ahead. And go ahead, I'll let you go, because I was going to actually mention Haas, because I've seen them at a number of the traffic safety conferences around the country, and I think it's a really incredible product.
Yeah, they really fall into the Thames plan, right? So
exactly.
We've also partnered with Haas. So any vehicle that's powered with Whelen Clap platform, we're able to give them the technology of Haas Safety Cloud as well. So we can give other drivers on the road use that alert that an emergency vehicle is approaching them from behind, or as they're traveling down the road, they can see that an emergency scene is ahead much further than when they can physically see it in person and see those emergency lights. But that added feature that we focus on with our law enforcement is R2R alerts. So that's responder to responder. So we all know when there's a bad scene, there's multiple agencies traveling to the same destination. So we've got law enforcement, coming from east and west, and fire and EMS. We're all coming to that central location. We are bound to meet other officers and emergency responders at intersections. We can now, with Haas, this power of Haas, be able to give a 30-second heads up to an officer in a vehicle that there's potentially a collision with another emergency vehicle. We hate to see any accidents like that, but being able to give them that heads up that, hey, there's another emergency vehicle responding and near this intersection, take extra precaution. That's key to getting officers to the scene safer.
Now, how close are we to getting that technology in the field, or is it already out there?
It's already out there, so you can get it today if you want.
So if you had to estimate, Chris, and it's probably hard, I mean, among folks that purchase Whelen products, but what do you think the percentages of folks that sort of have this top of the line, basically the C-suite of all the things that you can purchase I mean, I know that there's a number of smaller rural agencies across the nation that it's very difficult to upfit vehicles with all of this technology. But what would you say the percentages around the nation of people that really have the best of the best?
And I couldn't give you a percentage, but I can tell you this: from a large agency that has thousands of vehicles as part of their agency to some small agencies that just have 20 officers and their group, they're both able to afford this type of technology. It is not insanely expensive to get this type of technology. The lighting that you're buying is exactly the same. Really, the control system is what changes that automation and that ability to do that. And the Whelen Cloud platform is also. So Whelen Cloud platform is brand new. We're actually going full launch on January 1st. So, but you can get it today. It's kind of a pre-launch piece as well. So reach out to you if anybody's interested and has any questions. Please reach out to your local Whelen rep, and they can get you introduced to somebody on our cloud team that can kind of give you the details of the technology. But I can tell you this: it's affordable, it's easy to get, it's easy to install, and it actually even allows for easier changes in the future, because another benefit of cloud is you can update over the air. So if there's a change that needs to be made to a flash pattern or a siren control, you can actually do it over the air without bringing the vehicle into the shop. But it's all very affordable and easy to acquire.
And I'm confident that we can both agree that there's no amount of money that we can put on a life, for our men and women out there who are boots on the ground every day, making it safer for our folks in our communities and for the people that they're protecting, right? I mean, there's no amount of money that you can put on that. So I think that's
Exactly.
important. Chris, this has been very enlightening and insightful. And is there anything that we missed? Anything you want to talk about that maybe you missed?
I don't think so. I think we kind of covered it all. Latest technology, and we even covered the old technology. We covered it all.
We did. Chris, thanks so much. I'd like to thank you for joining us here and representing Whelen so well and really educating folks around the nation a little bit more about what goes behind these lighting and siren systems. I think it's amazing the direction that it's going in, how comprehensive it is. And it's so important. It really is what gets you to A to B quickly and then protects the scene once you get there. So Chris, thank you so much for joining us. And for Lifeline, this is Troy Anderson wishing you a safe and healthy day. And thanks again for listening. Bye-bye.
Please subscribe to Precinct 444 on your favorite podcasting platform to stay connected and to receive our latest content as soon as it drops. We would love to hear from you. Send in your questions, comments, and feedback to precinct444@nleomf.org. You can help us make our content even better. The National Law Enforcement Museum is located at 444 East Street Northwest in Washington, D.C., and is dedicated to telling the story of American law enforcement. We expand and enrich the relationship between law enforcement and the community through educational journeys, immersive exhibitions, and insightful programs. Find us online at lawenforcementmuseum.org and stay tuned for more podcast content from Precinct 444. Until next time, stay safe. We'll see you at the precinct.